I think this year is the phase of infrastructure where AI works on the infrastructure layer behind the scenes, running operations, generating metadata, automating a bunch of mundane tasks that were too repetitive. I think everyone needs to start internalizing first and breaking down everything by first principles, right down from the moment your first customer touchpoint begins to the end and how you retain them. The way AI works today, if you look at the use cases that it's solving today, it works more like an intern. I think in a year's time, at least, it's already happening with some of our use cases, but it's going to move on from being an intern to really understanding context. And when it's able to do that, it's essentially replacing your current decision-making blockers and enabling you to function at a whole different level.
This panel is going to be on the most exciting topic in technology, which is AI. We're not real. Just making sure you're paying attention. So I'm going to have each of our panelists introduce themselves as we all just got to know one another. And then I've got a handful of questions to ask, but really hoping for some participation. So if you have questions, it can be in the middle, doesn't have to wait till the end. Just raise your hand. But look, here's my belief. If you're waiting for the AI fad to be over, to go back to the way life was, that's not going to happen. And in fact, if anything, we are moving too slowly, not fast enough. And I think these folks are going to be talking about that. So, Adrian, let's start with you.
These are my Adrian Driscoll, co-founder of a company called Collimation. We're storytellers. So we use emerging tech to teach people how to use emerging tech to tell their story and avoid the actual human. I'm also a top leading XR and AI expert. So I try to find the holes in these technologies, and effectively build them.
Fantastic. Hardik.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me here. I'm very excited. My name is Hardik Jagda, and I'm the founder, chairman, and CEO of Proximity Works. We are a group of 5 AI-native technology companies that has been working in the sports media and entertainment sector for the past 6 years now. So we started in live sports back in 2019, built platforms that would help viewers, sports platforms scale to hundreds of millions of viewers watching live sports. And over the past 3 years, all of the work that we've done has been mainly in AI. And the platforms that we've helped build reach over 600 million monthly active users today. Think of us as a group of Navy SEALs that you embed into your organization. We identify the missions that are critical to your success and your growth and your survival. And we pick those missions over a year-long period, and we ship those missions using AI. And that's the rapid experimentation that we use to give companies an edge in today's market. Thank you.
I always wanted Navy SEALs to be working for me. I like that. Scott.
I really represent the room a little bit better from an AI standpoint, where genuine AI buzzword, they did not fair. We work about 200 sport property around the country and a few international property. We help them deploy implement AI technology to support their education staff. And so where we really sit is, we talk to one of our competitors in the States, and they talk about how they were trying to build the perfect technology period. And we've been hyper-focused as a group to identify the best use of technology for those goals. So it's great to be here with genuine AI experts that have been using it for we thought AI meant idle bottlenecks, and they've been really working on the true piece of it. Oh, it's still good from the opposition.
I love it. So yeah, I've now gotten to the point where my boys are two teenage boys, 18, 17, and they tell me to stop asking AI every question that I have in life. So my thing is now, for years people ask a question and the answer is like, oh, I don't know. And now that doesn't work, right? I don't know isn't an answer anymore. It's at your fingertips. But with that said, I do want to start with just a couple softballs, if you will, and questions for all the panelists to answer, which is, where are we today in the AI landscape? Where are we today? Who wants to start?
I think last year was all about demos. We saw a lot of fancy and shiny demos going viral. all across X and other social media platforms. But I think this year is the phase of infrastructure where AI works on the infrastructure layer behind the scenes, running operations, generating metadata, automating a bunch of mundane tasks that were too repetitive, and giving companies an edge on the infrastructure layer. And I think it's getting to a point where it's running behind the scenes like electricity, critical but invisible.
Scott.
For somewhere between roughly between
The technical revolution, the industrial revolution, and for those of you who would like to remember Tata, the noi got a lot of wrap around ChatGPT, wrap around these other guys, and just AI for the sake of AI. And we were also seeing incredible innovation and had really amazing opportunities to allow humans to do what humans do best, and be experiential, experimental, and but we got a little bit bold at the same time, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's something to be hyper focused on, and they're leaning into the idea that this is both incredibly revolutionary that we don't even understand beyond. We made that come also the .com bubble and careful we can
Right. I mean, I agree with all these on them, honestly, but I think we're at the beginning days. For most people, AI is still a gimmick, which is very exciting, because if you're really telling a story, you're really creating and innovating using products, then it's a great time, because the gimmick will always suck. But the people who are actually building using these tools, who are actually creating strong infrastructures, will shine so much better in the next 5 or even 3 years, considering the advance. So we're at that. We're at the, how do I really use this? Beyond just creating, cool picture to actually have 5-figure descents up. Like there's a lot of opportunity here.
So, and I'm going to answer it in one way, because just piggyback on a couple things you said. You were talking about the .com era, right? And so a lot of times you hear this analogy of kind of this AI race versus the browser wars, or the AI wars versus the browser wars, right? So in the mid '90s, it was Mosaic and Netscape and Internet Explorer that were fighting for market share. And this is a little different to me. So just want to show you, how many people are using AI daily? Great. Hourly. That's perfect. Great audience. That's great. And how many are, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Copilot, Grok? All right, so you're the crazy guy. All right, love it. Sometimes a little. So look, but the answer is, I think, really the difference between the browser wars and the AI war is the browsers were all doing the same thing, right? The browsers were all just rendering a standard of HTML and CSS and rendering web pages. The LLMs are all doing it differently. And so the answer might be, hey, I want to use Claude for this task, but then maybe ChatGPT is better for the next task, right? And so I think there is this nuance difference that exists out there. So you were saying we're in perhaps a gimmicky phase. So what's one thing you believe every organization or leader should be doing with AI right now? How do we get out of the gimmick? What's one thing that everyone should be doing?
I think that's really hard to answer, because a lot of organizations don't even know what their story is. They don't know what they're trying to say. So you made a great point earlier. I use AI against each other. I'll have ChatGPT write some code, and I was sort of alpha artist, so I help build this sort of program, right? But I'll have ChatGPT write some code, and then I'll take it to Gemini and say, hey, my junior editor did this. Can you make it better? And then we'll have them working against each other. Find a program that works for you. Find something that you're comfortable with in general, right? And dive it. Spend 1 hour a day. 1 hour a day, and that can literally change your life. If it's on your ChatGPT app, that will blow your mind, and most people aren't using it. And I don't want to make this a long answer, but I had a chat with James Miniagra, who's over at Google, at brilliant dude. He said, people are afraid of the misuse, but they're not thinking of the misuse. right? And that's so profound to me because most of us are underutilizing AI in a very, very major way.
That is profound. Mind blown. Same question to you. What's one thing you believe every organization or leader should be doing with AI right now?
I think every leader should be working towards putting themselves out of business in a way. Integrating a culture of rapid experimentation, thinking that it's day zero and they have unlimited tools available today, and just rethinking everything from the ground up for each layer of the company.
Like that.
That's an interesting way of phrasing it, because you can design your way out of your job by going through that practice. You're going to open yourself up to other things that you can do with that recon. It's going to be a very productive way to lean into it. I go back to the idea of why. Not AI for AI's sake, but absolutely spend an hour just experimenting and being curious and playing with it so you're comfortable with it. But at the end of the day, any problem that exists in the world could be solved by three things: data, money, time.
Yep.
So if we know that, how does AI and technology solve for any of those three things and lead into your internal organization? They're trying to have efficiency, add a value add for our product and our delivery, the why we exist in the world, and how can AI or just technology in general, data, money, or time, solve for that or help improve what it is I would try to do, and do it in a tunnel look with the idea of what's the problem trying to solve for, what technology exists or could potentially exist that may not yet, that would solve for this problem. And I think that's going to be a really great place to start.
And so let me look at that because I think I love the way you phrase that, because most founders tie themselves so far into their company that if they're not there, the company can't survive it, right? So to use these tools to, hey, I'll create a second version of myself who knows how I would move and, gives you that pre-con is profound. I love that phrasing, but that's great.
Love that you guys love each other. So look, Hardik, you said something that a lot of us were piggybacking on, which is reimagining, right? Reimagining your organization, and really that's digital transformation in a nutshell, right? Is reimagining how we think about, engage with our users, with everything. And so I'm going to do something just talk about really quickly in higher ed, but then I'm going to throw it over to you to think about how you're doing it in sports entertainment. So in higher ed, right, we have to rethink, and the reason I'm bringing up higher ed, so I've taught at Syracuse University for 30 years, but the idea of the way teachers teach and students learn really hasn't changed in over a century, right? We stand up there and we lecture, and students take notes, now whether they're taking them by hand or on a computer, so the mechanism changed. But the idea of the way students learn and hasn't changed. And then we assess them a few times during a semester. We've all been through that, right? How can we change that with AI? How does AI completely flip that script where for the first time we can be teaching and learning at a level that is consistent where we are, which, by the way, I might be struggling in one class and I need the C-Spot Run edition, but in the next class, I'm the superstar and somebody else is the C-Spot Run. We can achieve that with AI, but that is going to take reimagining in this case, pedagogy. But with that, Hardik, how do we ensure that AI is solving a real problem? And it's not just a gimmick. It's not just the buzz. And perhaps I want to get specific here because I like examples. So can you expand on a real problem that Proximity Works has solved within this industry, within sports and entertainment?
I think everyone needs to start internalizing first and breaking down everything by first principles, right down like from the moment your first customer touch point begins to the end and how you retain them. In sports particularly, we've been working with one of our oldest customers. They are one of the biggest leagues in the world. And after every aim night, their marketing and content team would essentially burn the midnight oil. They would watch the entire game clip for 4 hours. They would timestamp it. They would clip highlights, and they would create short form content that they would publish on 12 platforms. And it would take them 6 hours every single time. Anyone else been there creating short form content using long form and like taking too long? So everything begins with you watching the entire clip, right? And that's one of the biggest opportunity areas that we saw. So we built our product, which is called MetaVision. It's an AI layer that essentially watches the match on your behalf, puts together the key moments of what has happened in the match, and clips, highlights, syncs commentary, adds captions, and creates social-ready content in just under 15 minutes. So the time to publish went from 6 hours down to 15 minutes. And this is, you compound this every single week, year over year, and you can create 5x more content. And if you want to be relevant today in sports, most of the under 25 audience doesn't consume live sports on TV or on streaming, but they still consume highlights. They still follow all the athletes, and they're spending all of their time on TikTok, on Instagram. So you have to create a lot of short form content, and that's a human limitation, because you'll need an army of folks actually creating and editing that level of content if AI cannot help you put that together.
I love that. Scott, I want to give you a chance. When you did your intro, you left out one piece, which is what company that you represent, which is WolfCycle. And I do want to give you a chance just to explain, A, what WolfCycle does, but B, how is AI changing the way sales and service teams are building relationships, especially within sports?
WolfCycle is an agency that sits on top of AI technology. Where we really focus is top of funnel communications through email. So virtual assistant outreach. So what we're taking our teams transactional data or market data, and we're putting it through an outbound campaign that perceived one-to-one outreach. And when people respond, we're engaging them and connect them directly to the sales rep. We're very intentional about not trying to form a relationship through AI with our customers. And really, it is the idea I will want to connect humans together as fast and as efficiently as possible. So we're really intentional there. We work about 200, I think I said 200 super properties. We represent estimated somewhere between 100 and 150 billion dollars in incremental revenue to our partners across the industry. So we represented the enormous contribution to the revenue goals, the service goals, to relationship building that C's are so strong at doing. But I think the way that AI technology really it changed the sales process, really understanding our opportunities at an individual level. So who are people from a personality standpoint, from a transactional, from a behavioral standpoint? We are seeing the earmuffs, some of the people in the room, the depth of the season ticket from a B2C standpoint. People are choosing to interact and have different relationships. It's seeing membership is starting to be more. And how do we, a lot of people in the room maybe represent organizations that have enjoyed a couple of seasons of sold out experiences. And so, well, if you are ahead of revenue, then your operation is sold out. You got the hardest job in sports, because now you have to come up with a new product to sell. And so how do we sell outside of the building, outside of the experience, to start to bring brands and create these in real life experiences that connect the brand with the customer, and data is giving us the ability to understand what those opportunities are, to communicate those opportunities and really experiment without having to make it a risky investment and trying to create those monetary.
So Scott, that fantastic. So when I think of all this, right, you don't really have AI without data, and you can't have data without connectivity, right? And so to me, there's this like triangle of, we need the right connectivity to collect the correct data, and then put AI on top of that, right? And so I think, if we were doing this panel 2, 3, 5 years ago, everything was about fan data and how do we collect the right data points. And we did to maybe a nauseating point, but then you collect the data, but how do you get to it? Now I'm going to give just a little story. I was speaking to all Syracuse University, our advancement team. So about 160 folks whose job it is to go raise money for the university. So I was speaking to this group, and what I was saying is, hey, this year we are going to put an AI layer on top of the data, right, where all this data is, because is what I call, they use a product, I won't say the name, I don't want to be mean, but I call it the cesspool, right, because it's their job, 160 people, to put the data in, and they're really good at it. Every conversation, they're putting the data in, and it is impossible to get the data out. right? And so then we have a whole team of data analysts whose job it is, hey, I'm going to Boston, and who should I meet with, and what should I do? Well, let me have a data analyst work on that, and a week later they get back to you, and the trip was 3 days prior. And so that model doesn't work. And so the idea is by putting an AI layer on top of just being able to ask a question and get the answer. No joke. So after I gave this presentation, someone came up to me and said, Jeff, I heard what you said, but I want to let you know that the data is there. I said, oh, I know the data is there. And she said, but it's my job to retrieve that data. And I said, okay, that's great. And I said, but now we're going to make it a little easier so everybody at the university can get the data. She said, no, I don't think you're hearing me. She goes, I write SQL queries. It's my job to get the data. And I said, well, if you're going to think that your job is to write SQL queries, you're going to be out of a job, right? Because that is old school thinking. And so it's a way of how do we layer on with whatever platform we are using, right? And so WolfCycle's doing it. It's not just so much about the data anymore, but how are we interacting with that data to get instantaneous information responses. So, all right. Adrian, over to you. You're a storyteller, right? We can tell. And you work, and by the way, I think if you go over to Ballrooms, it's 3C, Ballroom 3, he's got some incredible experiences set up there with AR, VR. But as we think of VR experiences, social impact campaigns that are out there, as AI becomes more involved in the content creation business, right? You were just talking about, right? We're saving a lot of time here. How do we ensure that there's still a story being told?
I love this question. Stories don't change. Like, the story is the root of everything. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. So they go and they use something with this tool. They use a VL create. And they say, hey, I created this really cool thing. So, but like, everything has a narrative. So understanding that will prompt you to want to use more tools, not just do it cheaper, not just do it better, line go stronger. A lot of people are leaning on the technology, and the technology does not matter to the consumer. The only thing that you're going to get from it is what's going to incentivize you. So the story is never going to die. AI will not replace storytellers. I promise you. Now, it might regurgitate something that sounds good, but at the end of it, when it comes to story, AI will always pass secrets.
Wow. It's great. Hardik, coming back to you. We talked about there's numerous AI tools, right? And let's also be clear, right? When I asked who's using ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini and Copilot and Perplexity and all these great tools, right? Those are just the mainstream kind of buzz generative AI tools, right? Like WolfCycle has an AI tool, right? So, but I guess the question is, how do you match a tool to a team's capabilities, right? Is in other words, is the solution just getting everybody a license to X product and saying we've checked the box, we're going to be successful?
I'd reframe it. I would start with the problem first. What are the key problems that your business solves for your customers today? And what's your accuracy rate there? What's stopping you from doing more today? And again, I think I go back to reasoning with first principles, breaking down the entire company as if you would look like a factory line. How would you see like a manufacturing pipeline, and you would see like each section being responsible for certain things, and you would identify blockers at each of those sections and the time that it takes for each of those sections to make sure that it moved on to the next part in the conveyor belt, right? And you would start with the problems, you would identify the bottlenecks, and then you would identify the tools that can help you with those bottlenecks. Right? Now, the ideal way for you would be to upskill your teams in those tools or get some training for your team in those tools, and I would get licenses for those. But if your team is not willing to adapt to them, that's a different challenge that most people face today. Because with AI, it's more, as much as it's about upskilling, it's also about behavior change in organizations. And that's one of the most difficult things to do, especially if you're a big company and you've been around for a while.
Change management, right? It's when people say, well, the technology, the technology works, right? These companies have been around, they're $1 billion valuation, they're big companies. The technology works. It's the change management, that's right, that we've got to get to. So Scott, you work with hundreds of sports and entertainment properties. Are you seeing trends, or are you beginning to have people talk about how organizations are using AI to personalize that fan journey? And kind of what's separating those from succeeding to experimenting to the ones who are like, yeah, I don't want to touch that.
We're seeing a breakdown of the silos between sales, marketing, business intelligence, because technology is enabling that, right? So we're seeing kind of a consolidation of power, if you will, under business intelligence and around the data, and who's really driving the ship, either by phase or by actual mechanism. We'll talk about the experiment and who's succeeding and who's just experimenting and who's not doing it at all. And then anybody who's experimenting is in some form succeeding. Even if they're just doing it for the sake of doing it, in it, they're involved that they're exposing themselves to. Change management, you guys talk about, is really key, really important. And by show of hands, who in here considers themselves a first mover or a adopter? Okay. So that's a down select step, right? And it's so different than on an internal team. You don't want to have every single person that's working for you be very eager on advancing their career and taking the next step. You need a balance of people that want to just be comfortable and do their job well and just stay like with a good company. Same thing with first movers, early adoption and the mass adoption, right? That arc exists for a reason. I love first movers and early adopters a lot, not because they're out there and they're doing it. It's because they're really good storytellers. You have to, because you have to be able to take on risk. And when things go a little bit waffy or things don't go as planned, you have to be able to explain to your stakeholders why it's okay and why this was a good investment, and it's okay and you learn a lot. So I like them because they're storytellers. I know we got a bunch of storyteller fans on Fate here. And so I think the first movers, the people that are getting curious and willing to take that risk and have a tolerance stop up a little here. Those are the ones that are going to be leading the way. And so if you're not a first mover or early adopter and you know that this is coming and we need to lean into it, don't put yourself in the position of being that, but identify the ones within your circle, within your colleague, but these CC you work with, who are those first movers, early adopters, and really lean into what's working with that more informedly as we continue to hammer home the why they're doing what they're giving. Not necessarily what they're getting from it, but why. Why did you decide to take on this technology? Or why did you decide to use that as an opportunity? The tech showed up and you went with it, or because you were trying to solve a technical problem. I think the teams that are that have that first mover or early adoption tolerance are the ones that are probably doing it first.
I'd actually like to add to that because you mentioned about storytelling and the why. We've been, for the past 2-3 years, we've been the de facto team that most of our sports customers work with as their AI innovation unit. And we would work a lot on their internal goals and helping them make their operations more efficient and whatnot. In order to do this, we have a global team, a global technology team and global engineering team that we work with. So our team is spread across more than 25 cities right now, all across the world. And we've been backlogged in being able to deliver just because of the number of people that it would take for us to hire in time to be able to do that. And when I sat with my talent acquisition team, they told me that it takes them 4 weeks to set up the final interview for a role. That starts from start to finish. It takes them 4 weeks for the final interview to happen. And I asked them, what if you could do that in 3 days? And they said it's impossible. Like the entire process, like all of these are the steps that you need to take. And this is how you do it. So again, change management, behavior change. So the older ways of doing things versus the newer ways of doing things. You have to start with the storytelling. I tell them that we have 5 customers waiting. They can't wait. We can't have like a month-long hiring pipeline. So how do we change this? I plugged in my key engineers with the talent acquisition team. We broke down the entire process of the entire 5-step interview process. We integrated AI in 2 or 3 of them, and we outsourced part of the pipeline to some of the senior folks from like Meta and Google doing the final round of interviews. So this took a lot of work. It almost was like 3 months of experimentation. A lot of things failed. Eventually, we ended up hitting our goal. And we now, when we have a new opening coming up for a new AI engineer that we need to onboard, it takes us 72 hours to do the final interview. And our team is not involved from start to finish, other than just publishing the role and then doing the final interview, and everything else is either automated or outsourced.
So it's fantastic. I'm going to take a question in just 1 second. I want to hit on one piece, which is there's a lot of folks here, and I don't know all the organizations you work for, big, small, but I'm sure there's folks at the organization who are the blockers or the traditionalists or nervous that AI is going to replace the job or them, right? And really what I think a lot of this comes down to is education, right? Is you have to, I'll take in athletics pre and post game stories, right? In college athletics, it's like this necessary evil that they have to be there, but nobody reads them. Nobody reads them, but it kind of has to be there as kind of this historic piece. And I sat with a group of folks, sports communication folks in college athletics, and they're like, no, AI, they can't write what we do. And I said, oh, really? Tell me which story was written with AI. And it's a coin flip. You can't tell, right? But it's educating them along the way and showing your job may evolve. Okay. And some jobs will change. Some will be eliminated, new jobs will be created. But it's those who choose not to use AI will absolutely be replaced by those who choose to use AI. All right, 100%. There's a question. Yeah, nice and loud.
But a 9 to 5 to day chart. So here, Corey, do you feel at a point that AI is washing out a cool kill gonna take up humanity of what be picked up in an interview or a longer interview process?
Yes and no. I think definitely if you replace the entire interviewing process with an AI interviewing process, we have key touch points. We've integrated asynchronous communication. So when a candidate enters the pipeline, we send them a very custom email with all of our recent talks about me, about the company, about the onboarding, even before they've actually interviewed for the company, to give them an idea of what the company is about and what they care about. And we care about wins. We work like a sports team because we work for sports teams. So you are as fast as the slowest person in your team. So I tell my team all the time that we are not a family, we are a sports team. We care about each other, but we want to make sure that every single person is moving the team forward. When you look at the hiring process from those lenses, most of the candidates that we've interviewed by our AI hiring pipeline as well, they've never felt that they were not interviewed by a human. Just because the final touch point and the post touch point and the key touch points are still with my team. Yeah.
And so I think it's an incredible question, right? And it's the right question to ask. But I also think, as I've been involved in really large companies and in institutions, and there are internal biases in the hiring process, right? And it brings me back to kind of the Moneyball. Those who've watched Moneyball with what's his name?
Brad Pitt.
Thank you, Brad Pitt. Appreciate it. With Brad Pitt, that whole idea of sports analytics came out because of the biases that folks had when evaluating talent. We look at somebody and based on gender or sex, or height or weight or whatever, glasses. I mean, it can be any characteristic, the way you dress. We make decisions, and I actually think AI has the ability to help us because it cuts through those biases, those intrinsic biases that are there. And so I think, yes, we still need the human touch point, but I actually believe you're going to see a lot of candidates be able to move forward that may have otherwise been overlooked because of a name on a resume, perhaps. Yes.
So you think with agentic AI now here that over-emphasizing and over-relying upon AI is going to give a company an advantage versus under-relying?
I think you need to find the right balance. You definitely need a lot of human in the loop wherever like key critical points are. So even when I'm talking about the hiring pipeline, we have continuous monitoring in place to ensure that we are none of the steps that we are taking or if the candidate is being passed on to the other phase or being skipped. We actually go down and there's like a weekly analysis that one person does. But the benefit of doing it in this fashion is that my team or the HR team doesn't have to wait until the candidate is available to talk to them and then monitor them. So you can just look at it on your own time and make sure that you are monitoring it, putting in the checks and corrections in place.
Actually, and ask you a different question.
Yeah.
If you're in a competitive environment,
Yeah.
and you're not a service company, but you're competing with other companies, you think that over-reliance is going to create the competitive advantage you against your competitors?
Bert, I do.
Yeah.
I do. Now, how long of a competitive advantage are you going to have, right? At some point, I think, every software company is going to be an AI company. And if they're not, they're probably going to be out of business. And every business is going to find a way to integrate AI into their strategy. But those who are doing it now, I think absolutely have a competitive advantage and a better story to tell in any industry, right?
I'll say that I think over reliance, the definition in the title, right? You rely on Unity too much. Like you think about tech mistakes, simple tech mistakes. What happens if you turn off your autocorrects? You realize I can't spell, right? So you lean on these schools, and of course, you get kind of dependent on them. You rely on them, and it will give you a competitive advantage. But you have to be able to realize, oh, wait, I am relying too much on this. I am depending too much on this, and it's taking. At one point, some of the outputs that you get are not going to fill cement. They're not going to give you the benefit that you were hoping for if you lean on it too much. So finding the balance is a key point in any of this because you can't over rely on it.
What person is serving book, right? And if you're able to 100% automate and do technology for the value that you provide in the industry, then you are going to be competed against.
And somebody will come in cheaper, lighter, easier to use, better UI, on, and you're just in a race of bottom.
This building we're in right now, this big, beautiful building, the short answer, it was built on the house always wins. But the real answer is Bellagio exists today as a legacy brand because of the people, because of the service it provided, the human element that it acquired to provide this experience for people. And they're absolutely 20 years running, best in class, right? And it's because of the human. So if we think about technology, if we want to just fully use tech to do what we do, your business is going to die by something like us. We are a very service heavy company that operates and acts like a tech company. So we provide the value or the benefit, but we are very service heavy. We talk to our partners every 2 weeks. We talk to them. We understand their business in some cases better than they, because of the service piece of it. So I think it's really understanding like, what is the value you're trying to deliver to your partner? What's the problem you're trying to solve? If you're competing for competition's sake, like short-term gains versus long-term sustainability and scalability. What we're designing today, what we're seeing today is a lot of the tech that's out there, our competitor set was built before ChatGPT was a common name. And so now all of a sudden you got language models, logic models, and all this stuff, and tech that was built wasn't designed to be controlled and manipulated by all these different things that you build the best technology, period. But then something else comes along and Salesforce creates a Magenta, something that can do what you can do. And you haven't built it to where the parts could be pulled out and they're changed. Enjoy the windfalls while you're gone. I hope you do a great job investing your profits because it's going to be short-lived, right? So do I want to build the best technology today, or do I want to prepare myself to be able to adapt to whatever technology is going to solve whatever problem or opportunity I presented for? I think so. Is a really good balance, being intentional, like how I want to represent myself in the world.
Direct question for you guys. First off, being per time, I work more on the technical side of like. So I guess Rowan tried to ask curious. I have a boss who's the CEO of the company, and you guys are talking about leaders are going to be the ones to implement this. Well, I mean, they're not going to have the time to go through and look at all these different technologies, what should be done, and that kind of stuff come from someone from myself. So my question kind of is, how do I go to my leader and tell them that this is something that should be implemented with our company the right way? But also make sure that I'm doing proper due diligence. So I'm not going to go to someone and implement something that's not going to be used with my company or be implemented for me that costs my company $2 million.
Yeah, so everything, it's a value proposition, right? And so you're in a position to understand the technology. Your leader's in the position to understand the strategy, and what you've got to figure out is what's that value that's going to help with that strategy. And if you can show it of here's how we're going to have lower expense, or here's how we're going to have less turnover, or here's how we're going to have better customer service, right? And if you can show it, not just say it, show it, then I think any good leader is gonna pay attention to that.
Yeah, and like I'm the founder of my company, and I rely on my key engineers to actually come up with these solutions proactively. And we discuss our blockers over a global leadership bi-weekly call every 2 weeks. And I'm actually telling them transparently that these are the blockers that we're facing. If someone has the bandwidth to actually pick it, drill it down, come up with a process where you can help save time, there'll always be some risk involved. So you can't really, so the $2 million question that you mentioned, that's always going to be the case. We want to try to get to a near zero chance of failure. That's what we're going to look at. I'm here today is that tired be fires. You see, it's average doing, but the problem that you just set in your face with is sometimes you have bosses that want me to do something because they want me to do it, but you know what's best. And I just couldn't get on my own way. And sometimes, so I think, you have that situation, understand what it is and why they're trying to get something done and they want to see something, deliver on what they want to see, but also at the same kind of use that as a window or an opportunity to start to walk them down the path that knows that's the organization, and then learn from those. Like when you deliver something, you do follow their agree or it does toss a company, you're going to learn and open yourself up to the vendors and the opportunities there, and then you'll put yourself up to just a bit of a deeper rattle. Like it's lean into any opportunity that they want to be an investment in technology or something, either that doesn't make sense and it seems like a off-balance investment, lean into it and use that as a reasonable extol and find out like how pay.
I'll add to that. I'll say, redefine the leader. What is a leader? Because if you're exploring AI and new technology, the new integration, then you're the leader of that part, right? And then you go with whoever your boss may be, and you say, hey, look, it's a cool idea, and let them have input. And now you're not on the hook for the 2 million if it all blah, 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 right? But taking the understanding of it's not linear anymore. A company should not just be linear because then someone just come in and collect a check, right? If they have that default in it, they have that attachment to the company doing well, now your leadership. And that they'll see that. You'd be giving them something new to make them look good and to stroke their ego, which is really what all of us want, right? It works.
Did you raise your hand when we asked for first movers or adopters? Is your boss a first mover or adopter? So find the first movers and early adopters at your boss's level and find their podcasts, find their things and feed that to like, oh, here's what some people in the industry are talking about, and get and deflect a story that you need to tell to somebody else. So it puts you out of the line of flyer, but you still have the thought leaders that are actually in that space pitching you a boss on your
Question over here.
So my name is Jonathan, and we are at 2028 coming up. So how do you see AI will be evolved at that time? To give you some context, my company is called IMI.ai. We are basically the digital psychologist and also both. And my company got into board of the committee innovation challenge, and I just came back on Switzerland like a month ago. Same question was asked.
So you could not have said, it's almost like we did this. You could not have set this up better. My last closing question, I'm just going to do a rapid fire, was where is AI going to be in the next year, right? So the question, usually panelists, you'd say, where are we going to be in 5-10 years? I have no idea, right? Too far. A year might be too far, but to 28, 27, where are we going to be in a year? Who wants to take it first?
You guys start?
we're in waterfall though. I think congratulations by the way on getting the opportunity and being able to run it. I think AI technology and AI in a year from now is going to be reviewed. I think it's going to expose a lot of people and with their strengths, their weaknesses, and ultimately, right, so if we're willing to eat to and having this disposition on it, autonomy of what's important to me as an individual, as an employee, as a career, as a family person, as a friend, as a traveler, as a whatever, you're going to start to identify and leverage AI individually, and we're going to be sharing so much information about ourselves, our companies, and the opportunities, and going to have an opportunity to put our foot down and say, no, this is, as an individual and all of us collectively, what we demand from our employers, what we demand from our travel providers, or we demand from hospitality providers. I think we are going to see a big shift in control
to the people. And if companies are paying attention, they will allow it to happen because there's so much you can do when you lean into your audience that you really want.
Well said.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. The way AI works today, if you look at the use cases that it's solving today, it works more like an intern. Do this for me, do that for me, and like generate meeting notes, or like make this booking and find me a slot that works and all that stuff. I think in a year's time, at least, it's already happening with some of our use cases, but it's going to move on from being an intern to really understanding context. And when it's able to do that, it's essentially replacing your current decision-making blockers and enabling you to function at a whole different level. And I think 1 year is not far for that. In 3 years, which you asked, I think my personal opinion is by Olympics, I think we'll have a huge rollout of robo-taxis. So I think a lot of people are still scared about self-driving cars. But if you just look at the stats and look at the safety records, they're so much better than how humans drive. And for people who still feel like are still afraid of sitting in one, I think one of the things that you could think about is you just reframe it. You're not sitting in a car that is driving by itself, but you are sitting in a robot that's taking you somewhere. So that really helps put my mind at ease, at least.
Wow. I shouldn't do my last. Okay. In a year, I see AI as so implemented because the price points come down. Right now, people are afraid of the price point. ChatGPT Pro is expensive. Sora, all these things are expensive, right? Now it's going to be a huge rush and a huge flood to, hey, I want to be part of it now, but it's only $29.99. It costs, or I can get this with my Netflix subscription. So you're gonna see a lot of people rushed in, and there's gonna be a lot of noise. There's gonna be a ton of noise. But then by the 3-year point, some of those things start fizzle out, and then it's like, oh wow, we are getting towards the solar puck area. We are getting more towards utopia. We are freeing up time. People are happier, right? Because it's getting rid of the task and getting with access things you didn't have before. And if you are a small company, or if your company seems small, there are these small companies, but if you're a smaller company, you'll have access to things that multi-billion-dollar companies have naturally.
And then I think with the Olympics, particularly when we think of sports and the way we consume content, somebody said it, right? That our kids don't want to watch live games, right? In Red Zone, right, was super successful. Red Zone, Scott Hansen, Syracuse grad, throw that in there. But even Red Zone is a little antiquated, right? What people want to see today is their fantasy team, right? And so how do you see your fantasy team where I am now putting in, here's my players, and now I am watching those plays. And now how do we take that model and think about it in the Olympics in 3 years with AI? Last thought.
Thank you.
I thought that was it.
What you said about, I love what you said about 3 years down the line, things will fizzle out. The subscription models are going to fizzle. Not the subscription will fizzle out, but just the attack on the new stuff. Things are going to come out and trump previous companies. My question is, I came across a company called Lovable.dev, where you pay $25 a month, type to create website. You can look at the Python coding, and I'm big OCD on prompting. I'm obsessed with prompting and mastering how to prompt, because when you know that, take over the world. I feel correct. If I create a product or a website that I feel absolutely very unique, I'm bringing to the table very soon, how do I prevent someone else from copying my brand in its entirety or my concept in its entirety? Is there a way, say outside of the traditional methods, to protect the business with patents? Is there a way to just become fully protected in any facet? Or is it just not possible?
I think full protection or a little full protection is fear. At the end of the day, there are going to be people that copy your product. Okay, so now say it loud, say it proud. Okay, for every Pepsi, there will be a Coke. This is the truth. And competition drives the field. If you have no competitors, then you're probably not good. So this is the truth, right? So people will start copying. There will be other people who meet their team version. But don't be afraid of that. I say the way you do it is to, and I hate this, I'm horrible at social media, but the way you do it is to post and to talk to people about it and get people's insights, right? Let people sell the product for it, right? And then when the competitors come down, like, oh, that's cute, but I already did that first. You know, you want to be first to market. So you have to get out there. You have to bid direct public.
So in essence, you recommend prior to going fully public with your product, maybe get with a system that has the ability to just make it the highest tier possible. Yep. So if someone wants to copy it, it's going to be so latent, but opposed to releasing your model in its 60% success base, it's got to be the ultimate level, right? And then it just takes over.
And users will stay with, fans and customers and clients are loyal. You know, I mean, there are still good percent. Sorry, I don't think. But no, see, they're not on this. But fan will stay loyal. People will stay loyal to your product. So as long as you provide a true value, you don't have to worry about competition.
This is the question, right? Where's Google going to be in a year? Where's Google going to be? Either both from an antitrust side. I don't know if you saw OpenAI just announced they're going to launch their new browser.
Yeah.
What's that going to do to a market that has not changed in 2.5 decades?
Perplexity already did.
Perplexity already did. We've kept you over time. I want to thank the panelists. Thank you for some incredible questions. Enjoy the rest of SEICon. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray.